Commander Sarah Chun was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm bells started ringing. She put down her cup and ran to the control room of the space station. Her hands were shaking a little. In 30 years of working in space, she had never heard these particular alarms before. "What is happening?" she asked Lieutenant Jackson, who was staring at his computer screen with wide eyes. "Commander, you need to see this," Jackson said. His voice was quiet and scared. "We have a ship coming toward us, a really big ship. And it is not human." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. She had trained for this moment her whole life, but she never thought it would actually happen. First contact with aliens was something that happened in movies, not in real life. She looked at the main screen. There was indeed a massive ship heading straight for their space station. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship looked like it was made of dark metal and strange crystals. Parts of it were glowing with purple light. "How big is it?" Sarah asked. "About 10 times the size of our station," Jackson replied. "And Commander, there's something else. They are trying to talk to us." Sarah could not believe her ears. "They speak our language? That is the strange part. They are speaking perfect English. Listen to this." Jackson played the recording. A deep voice filled the room. The voice sounded calm but powerful. "This is Stradorch Veltar of the Catherian hegemony ship called Hegemony Prime. We request permission to dock with your station. We come in peace and wish to speak with your leader." Sarah stood silent for a moment. Her mind was racing. This was the most important moment in human history. Everything she said and did from now on would affect the future of her entire species. "Send them a reply," she said finally. "Tell them they have permission to dock. And tell all crew members to be ready for anything." 2 hours later, Sarah stood in the docking bay with 20 of her best people. Half of them were scientists, and half were security guards. Everyone was nervous. They had never met aliens before, and they did not know what to expect. The alien ship connected to their station with a loud clang. Sarah could hear strange humming sounds coming from the other side of the door. Then the door opened. The first thing Sarah noticed was how tall the aliens were. The leader was almost 8 feet tall. His skin looked like it was made of green and blue crystals. He had 4 arms and 6 eyes arranged around his head. When he moved, Sarah could hear soft clicking sounds, like someone typing on a keyboard. Behind him were 5 other aliens. They all looked similar but smaller. They were carrying what looked like weapons, but the weapons were pointed down at the floor. The tall alien stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was the same one they had heard on the radio. "I am Stradorch Veltar," he said. "You must be Commander Chun. I have studied your species for some time. You are exactly as our records described." Sarah tried to stay calm, but inside she was amazed. "You know about humans? How is that possible?" "We have been watching your species for many years," Veltar replied. "We know about your wars, your science, your art. We find your people very interesting." Sarah did not know if that was good. "Bad. What do you want from us?" Veltar reached into what looked like a pocket in his crystal skin. He pulled out a strange device. It was about the size of a tablet computer, but it was glowing with soft blue light. "Commander Chun, before we can begin any serious discussions, there is something that must be done first," Veltar said. "It is our custom. It is very important." Sarah felt her security team tense up behind her. What kind of custom? Veltar held out the glowing device toward her. "Human, it is customary that you examine me thoroughly. You must use this scanner to check my body, my mind, everything about me. Only then can we talk about important matters." Sarah stared at the device. She had no idea what to think. This was not what she had expected aliens to say during first contact. Was this some kind of test? Was it a trap? Or was it really just their custom? "I do not understand," Sarah said. Why do you want me to examine you? It is the way things are done, Veltar replied. Every species we meet must examine us first. It is very important that you do this correctly. Dr. Kim, the station science officer, stepped forward. Commander, this could be valuable. If we can scan their biology, we might learn a lot about them. But Lieutenant Torres, the security chief, looked worried. Commander, this feels like a trap. Why would they want us to scan them? What if the device is a weapon? Sarah looked at Veltar carefully. The alien seemed calm, but she noticed something strange. His 6 eyes kept moving around, like he was nervous. Also, the other aliens behind him were making soft clicking sounds to each other. Were they talking in their own language? If I do this examination, Sarah said slowly, what will happen next? Then we will know if your species is ready, Veltar replied. Ready for what? Veltar paused for a long moment. Ready to join the galaxy. Sarah felt a chill run down her back. Something about the way he said those words made her very uncomfortable. But she also knew that this moment would change everything for humanity. Whatever choice she made now would affect billions of people. She reached out and took the scanning device from Veltar's hand. It felt warm and seemed to vibrate slightly. All right, she said. I will examine you. But I want my people watching everything I do, Veltar nodded. Of course, please, begin whenever you are ready. Sarah looked at the device in her hands. She had no idea how to use it, but somehow she felt like humanity's future depended on what she was about to discover. Sarah held the alien device in her hands. It was smooth and warm, like holding a living thing. She looked at Veltar, who was standing very still. His 6 eyes were all focused on her. How does this work? She asked. Just point it at me and press. The blue circle, Veltar said. The device will do the rest. Sarah found the blue circle on the side of the device. She pointed it at the tall alien and pressed it. Immediately, the device started making soft beeping sounds. The screen began showing numbers and strange symbols that she could not read. Dr. Kim moved closer to look at the screen. Commander, this is incredible. Look at these readings. Sarah looked at the numbers. Some of them were jumping around very fast, others were steady. She had no idea what any of it meant, but Dr. Kim looked very excited. What are you seeing? Sarah asked. His body temperature is much lower than ours, Dr. Kim said. And look at this. His heart rate, if that is what this measures, is very slow. But there is something else. Commander, I think parts of his body are not biological. Sarah looked up at Veltar. What does he mean? Veltar did not answer right away. He seemed to be thinking carefully about his words. Your doctor is very observant. Yes, parts of my body are mechanical. This is normal for my people, Sarah continued scanning. The device was showing her more and more information. She saw images of Veltar's insides. It looked like someone had built a computer inside a living body. There were wires and circuits, mixed with what looked like organs and bones. This is amazing, Dr. Kim whispered. Commander, his brain is partially artificial. The processing power must be enormous. But Lieutenant Torres was looking at a different part of the screen. His face had gone pale. Commander, you need to see this section here. Sarah looked where Torres was pointing. There was a red area on the screen with flashing warnings. She could not read the alien text, but the red color made her nervous. What is that? She asked Veltar. The alien's crystal skin seemed to change color slightly. Those are my defensive systems. Defensive systems? Sarah repeated. Weapons, Torres said grimly. Commander, according to this scan, he has weapons built into his body. Lots of them. Sarah felt her heart start beating faster. She looked at Veltar with new eyes. This was not just a peaceful alien visitor. This was a living weapon standing in her space station. Why do you have weapons inside your body? She asked. For protection, Veltar replied. The galaxy can be a dangerous place. Sarah continued scanning, but now she was much more careful. The device showed her that all of the aliens had similar weapon systems. They were walking armories disguised as diplomats. Dr. Kim was still studying the biological readings. Commander, there is something very strange about their brain activity. Look at these patterns. Sarah looked at the brain scans. Even though she was not a doctor, she could see that something was unusual. The patterns looked chaotic, like there was some kind of interference. What does this mean? She asked. I am not sure, Dr. Kim said. But it looks like there might be something affecting their thinking, some kind of external influence. Veltar suddenly stepped backward. For the first time since arriving, he looked uncomfortable. That is enough scanning for now, he said. But we are not finished, Sarah said. The basic examination is complete, Veltar replied quickly. Now we should discuss why we are here. Sarah noticed that the other aliens behind Veltar were making more clicking sounds. They seemed agitated. One of them stepped forward and made a series of rapid clicks at Veltar. Sarah could not understand the language, but it sounded like an argument. Veltar clicked back at his officer, then turned to Sarah again. Commander Chun, now that you have examined me, I must tell you about the Catherian hegemony. Go ahead, Sarah said, but she kept the scanning device ready. We control 847 star systems, Veltar said. We have brought peace and order to countless worlds. We offer the same to humanity. Lieutenant Torres stepped closer to Sarah. That sounds like they want to conquer us, he whispered. Sarah thought the same thing, but she tried to stay calm. What exactly are you offering? Join the hegemony willingly, and your people will be treated well, Veltar said. You will have protection, technology, and a place in our great civilization. And if we refuse? Sarah asked. Veltar paused for a long moment. That would be unfortunate. The threat was clear, even though he had not said it directly. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. She needed more information. How many other species have joined your hegemony? She asked. All of them, Veltar replied. Every species we have encountered has chosen to join us after the examination process. Sarah found that hard to believe. Every single one chose to join willingly? Yes, Veltar said, but something in his voice sounded strange. Every species that examined us properly understood that joining was the best choice. Dr. Kim was still looking at the scanner readings. He pulled Sarah aside and whispered, Commander, I think there is something they are not telling us. These brain scans show signs of external control, and look at this. He pointed to a section of the display. His stress levels are extremely high. For someone who claims to be offering us a great opportunity, he seems very worried about something. Sarah looked at Veltar more carefully. Now that Dr. Kim mentioned it, she could see signs of stress. The alien's crystal skin was changing colors slightly, and his movements seemed tense. Veltar, she said, are you feeling all right? The alien's 6 eyes all focused on her at once. For a moment, he looked almost surprised by the question. I am fine, he said quickly. We should continue with the negotiations. But Sarah was starting to think that Veltar was not fine at all. Something was very wrong here, and she was determined to find out what it was. I think we need to examine you more thoroughly, she said, raising the scanning device again. This time, Veltar did not object. In fact, he looked almost relieved. Sarah pointed the scanning device at Veltar again. This time, she was looking for specific things. Dr. Kim stood beside her, watching the screen carefully. Look deeper into his nervous system, Dr. Kim suggested. I want to see what is causing those strange brain patterns. Sarah pressed different buttons on the device. The screen changed to show a detailed view of Veltar's brain and nervous system. What she saw made her gasp. What are those tiny things? She asked, pointing at the screen. Dr. Kim leaned closer. Throughout Veltar's brain and spinal cord there were thousands of tiny dark spots. They looked like little worms or parasites moving around inside his nervous tissue. "Commander," Dr. Kim whispered, "I think those are living organisms. They are not part of his natural biology." Sarah felt sick to her stomach. "You mean parasites?" "That is exactly what I mean," Dr. Kim said. "And look at this. They are concentrated around the areas that control aggression and decision-making." Veltar was standing very still during the scan, but Sarah noticed that his crystal skin was changing colors rapidly. He looked like he was fighting some kind of internal battle. "Dr. Kim," Sarah said quietly, "can you access our computer files? I want to know more about the species that joined the hegemony." Dr. Kim nodded and used his tablet to connect to the station's database. He searched for any information about the Cytherian hegemony and their conquered worlds. "Here we go," he said after a few minutes. "I found records of the civilizations that were absorbed by the hegemony. Look at this pattern." Sarah looked at his tablet while continuing to scan Veltar. Dr. Kim had found something very interesting. Every species that had been conquered by the Cytherians had gone through the same process. First, the Cytherians would arrive and request an examination. Then, after the examination, the species would surrender. "This is strange," Sarah said. "According to these records, every species used different scanning technology. Some were more advanced than others. But notice this," Dr. Kim pointed to specific details. "The more advanced the scanning technology, the longer the species took to surrender. The ones with basic scanners gave up immediately. The ones with better scanners took weeks or months." Sarah thought about this. "What does that mean?" "I think it means that the better scanners found something that the basic ones missed," Dr. Kim said. "Something that made the species think more carefully about surrendering." Sarah looked at Veltar again. The alien commander was watching her with all 6 eyes, but he looked very nervous. Behind him, the other aliens were clicking at each other frantically. "Veltar," Sarah said, "how long have your people had these parasites in their brains?" Veltar froze completely. For several seconds, he did not move or speak. Then, very quietly, he said, "How did you know to call them parasites?" "Because that is what they are," Dr. Kim said, showing Veltar the scanner display. "These organisms are controlling your brain functions." One of the other aliens stepped forward quickly and clicked something at Veltar. Veltar clicked back, but his response sounded angry. "What did he say?" Sarah asked. Veltar looked around nervously, then leaned closer to Sarah. "He told me to stop this conversation immediately. He said the examination has gone too far." "But you are the commander," Sarah said. "Why are you taking orders from him?" "Because," Veltar said very quietly, "I am not really in command. None of us are." Dr. Kim was studying the scanner readings more carefully. "Commander, I think I understand what is happening. These parasites have been controlling the Cytherians for a long time. Every time they encounter a new species, they hope that species will be advanced enough to detect the parasites. So the examination is not about conquest," Sarah realized. "It is about getting help." Veltar nodded slowly. "For 300 years, we have been searching for a species that could see what you have seen. Most species scan us and see only our weapons and technology. They surrender because they are afraid of our military power. But they cannot see the parasites," Sarah continued. "Exactly," Veltar said. "Only a few species have had scanners good enough to detect them. But even those species tried to destroy the parasites with violence. That approach always failed." Sarah felt a mixture of horror and sympathy. "So your entire civilization has been controlled by these things for centuries?" "We were once a peaceful people," Veltar said sadly. "We were scientists and artists. We explored the galaxy to learn and share knowledge. Then we encountered these parasites on a dead world. We thought they were just interesting microorganisms. What happened? Dr. Kim asked. At first, they seemed harmless. They even helped us think faster and solve problems more efficiently. But slowly, they began changing our behavior. They made us more aggressive, more interested in conquest than discovery. Sarah looked at the scanner display again. The parasites were everywhere in Veltar's nervous system. How are you able to talk about this now? Why are the parasites not stopping you? Because you are examining me, Veltar explained. During the examination process, the parasites become less active. They are focused on hiding from your scanners. This gives me brief moments when I can think clearly. Lieutenant Torres had been listening to everything. Commander, if these parasites control them, how do we know this is not just another trick? Sarah thought about this carefully. She looked at the scanning data again. Dr. Kim, can you tell if he is lying? Dr. Kim studied the readings. His stress levels are consistent with someone telling the truth under extreme pressure. Also, look at this. He pointed to a section of the brain scan. When he talks about his people's peaceful past, different areas of his brain light up. Those areas are heavily infested with parasites, but they are fighting against the parasitic control. Veltar's crystal skin was now flashing different colors. Rapidly. Please, he whispered. You have better scanning technology than any species we have encountered. Your medical knowledge might be advanced enough to help us. Help you how? Sarah asked. Find a way to remove the parasites without killing us, Veltar said. Every species that tried to help us before used weapons or poisons. Those methods killed the parasites but also killed us. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This was not just about first contact anymore. An entire civilization was depending on humanity to solve a problem that had plagued them for centuries. We need to study this more, she said. Dr. Kim, get Dr. Martinez and Dr. Patel up here immediately. We need our best medical minds working on this. Veltar looked hopeful for the first time since arriving. You will try to help us? We will try, Sarah promised. But I need you to be completely honest with us about everything. I will tell you everything I can, Veltar said. But please hurry. The examination period will not last much longer, and when it ends, the parasites will regain full control. Dr. Martinez and Dr. Patel arrived at the docking bay within minutes. Sarah quickly explained what they had discovered about the parasites controlling the Cytherians. Both doctors looked shocked, but they immediately got to work studying the scanner data. This is unlike anything in our medical databases, Dr. Martinez said, looking at the detailed scans of Veltar's nervous system. These parasites have completely integrated themselves into his brain functions. Dr. Patel was examining the data from a different angle. Look at how they cluster around specific brain regions. They seem to target areas responsible for aggression, fear, and decision-making. Sarah looked at Veltar, who was standing very still. His crystal skin was still changing colors, but more slowly now. How much time do we have before the parasites regain control? She asked. Not long, Veltar replied. His voice sounded strained. Maybe 1 or 2 hours at most. After that, I will not be able to speak freely again. Dr. Kim was comparing the Cytherian data with human medical records. Commander, I have an idea. These parasites remind me of something we deal with in human medicine. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Humans have many organisms living inside our bodies, Dr. Kim explained. Bacteria in our stomachs, mitochondria in our cells. Most other species we have studied try to kill foreign organisms immediately. But humans have learned to work with them. Dr. Martinez nodded excitedly. He is right. Human medicine focuses on balance, not destruction. We do not just kill harmful bacteria. We try to restore the natural balance of good and bad organisms. But these are not natural organisms, Dr. Patel pointed out. They are clearly controlling the Catherians against their will. True, Dr. Kim said, but what if we could change their behavior instead of killing them? What if we could reprogram them to be helpful instead of harmful? Sarah felt a spark of hope. Is that possible? In theory, yes, Dr. Martinez said. We would need to understand how the parasites communicate with each other and with the host brain. Then we could potentially introduce new signals that change their behavior. Veltar had been listening carefully. No species has ever tried this approach before. They all focused on destroying the parasites completely. That is because most species see parasites as enemies to be defeated, Dr. Kim said. But humans have a different relationship with the organisms that live inside us. We see them as partners that sometimes need guidance. Sarah made a decision. Do it. Figure out how to reprogram these parasites. But you need to work fast. The three doctors immediately got to work. They used the alien scanner to take more detailed readings of Veltar's brain activity. They also connected their own medical equipment to study the parasites from multiple angles. Commander, Dr. Patel said after 30 minutes of work, I think we found something important. These parasites communicate using electrical signals, similar to human brain cells. That means we can potentially interfere with their communication, Dr. Martinez added. If we can send the right signals, we might be able to change their programming. Dr. Kim was working on his computer, analyzing the parasite behavior patterns. Look at this. The parasites seem to have a basic goal: survival and reproduction. Right now, they achieve this by making their hosts aggressive and expansionist. But what if we could convince them that cooperation and peace were better survival strategies? Sarah asked. Exactly, Dr. Kim said. We could use electromagnetic pulses combined with specific chemical signals to reprogram their basic instincts. Veltar looked interested but worried. This sounds very risky. What if it goes wrong? What if we do nothing? Sarah replied. Your people will continue to be controlled by these parasites forever. Dr. Martinez had been working on creating the reprogramming treatment. I think I have something that might work. We can use modified human gut bacteria combined with targeted electromagnetic therapy. Human gut bacteria? Veltar asked, confused. Humans have learned to work with bacteria that help us digest food and fight disease, Dr. Patel explained. These bacteria are naturally good at communicating with other microorganisms. We can modify them to carry new instructions to your parasites. Dr. Kim added, the electromagnetic therapy will make the parasites more receptive to the new programming. Instead of focusing on aggression and conquest, they will be programmed to enhance cooperation and empathy. Sarah looked at the treatment they had prepared. It consisted of a small injection and a device that would send electromagnetic pulses into Veltar's brain. Are you willing to try this? She asked the alien commander. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. His 6 eyes looked at each of his officers, then back at Sarah. If this works, it could free my entire species. If it fails, I might die. But living as a prisoner in my own mind is not really living at all. We will monitor you constantly. Dr. Martinez promised. If anything goes wrong, we will stop immediately, Veltar nodded. Do it. Dr. Patel gave Veltar the injection, while Dr. Martinez activated the electromagnetic device. Sarah watched the scanner readings carefully, looking for any changes in the parasite behavior. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly, the parasites began moving differently. Instead of clustering around the aggression centers of Veltar's brain, they started spreading out more evenly. The electromagnetic signals are working, Dr. Kim said excitedly. The parasites are responding to the new programming. Veltar suddenly stumbled and grabbed onto a nearby railing. His crystal skin began flashing rapidly through many different colors. What is happening? Sarah asked, worried. I can feel them changing, Veltar said, his voice filled with wonder. For the first time in centuries, my thoughts feel clear. The other Catherian officers were watching nervously. One of them started to step forward, but then stopped. His own crystal skin began changing colors in a pattern that looked almost like confusion. The change is affecting the others too, Dr. Patel observed. The parasites must communicate between different hosts. Veltar straightened up slowly. When? He looked at Sarah again. His expression was completely different. The cold, calculating look was gone, replaced by something warm and grateful. Commander Chun, he said, and his voice sounded different too. I cannot find words to express what you have done for us. For the first time in 300 years, I am thinking with my own mind. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. How do you feel? Free, Veltar replied simply. And ashamed. My people have done terrible things while under the control of these parasites. We have conquered peaceful worlds and destroyed civilizations. That was not your fault, Sarah said firmly. You were not in control of your actions. One of the other Catherian officers approached slowly. Stratarch Veltar, I feel strange. My thoughts are different. Veltar looked at his officer with new eyes. The humans have freed us, Tactician Zoranin. We are no longer slaves to the parasites. Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. How many Catherians are there in your fleet? 50,000. On our ships, Veltar replied. And billions more across our territory. Sarah took a deep breath. Then we have a lot of work to do. Word about the successful treatment spread quickly through the Catherian fleet. Within hours, officers and crew members from every ship were requesting permission to receive the liberation therapy. Sarah's medical team worked around the clock to produce enough of the treatment for everyone. Commander, Dr. Martinez said, looking exhausted but happy, we have treated over 300 Catherians so far. Every single treatment has been successful. Sarah watched as another group of liberated Catherians talked excitedly among themselves. Their crystal skin patterns had changed completely. Instead of the cold, harsh colors they had shown before, they now displayed warm, bright patterns that seemed to pulse with joy. Veltar approached Sarah with a group of his senior officers. All of them had received the treatment, and their personalities had transformed completely. Where once they had been rigid and military, they were now curious and friendly. Commander Chun, Veltar said, I must tell you something important. We have been studying our own historical records, and we have discovered something amazing. What did you find? Sarah asked. Before the parasites took control of us, the Catherian people had legends about a species that would one day help us. Veltar explained. These legends described beings who could form partnerships with other life forms instead of simply dominating them. One of his officers, a female Catherian named Siltara, stepped forward. The legend said this species would be the key to freeing not just us, but all the civilizations we had conquered under parasitic control. Sarah felt amazed. You mean you were looking for us specifically? Not exactly, Veltar said. We were looking for any species that could help us. But the legends described characteristics that match humans perfectly. You form beneficial relationships with bacteria in your bodies. You domesticate animals instead of just hunting them. You even take care of plants and help them grow. Dr. Kim, who had been listening, nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. Most species we have encountered in your records seem to view all foreign organisms as threats. But humans have always lived in cooperation with other life forms. That is exactly right, Siltara said. Every other species tried to solve our problem with violence. Only humans thought to reprogram the parasites instead of destroying them. Sarah looked out at the massive Catherian fleet through the stations. Windows, what happens now? You said you control hundreds of star systems. Veltar's expression became serious. Every world we conquered is still under parasitic control. Billions of Catherians are still enslaved by these organisms. And worse, we have spread the parasites to some of the species we conquered. How many species are affected? Sarah asked, feeling worried. At least 20 different civilizations, Veltar replied sadly. The parasites can adapt to different biology types. We unknowingly became carriers, spreading the infestation wherever we went. Sarah realized the enormous scope of the problem. So we need to liberate entire star systems. Yes, Veltar said, but there is hope. Now that we understand how the Phaean treatment works, we can modify it for different species. Your doctors have given us the key to freeing the entire galaxy. Dr. Patel joined the conversation. We have been working on that problem. The basic principle should work for any species. But we will need to adjust the treatment for different biological systems. How long will that take? Sarah asked. For each new species, maybe a few weeks to develop the right modification, Dr. Martinez said. But once we have the formula, we can treat millions of individuals quickly. Veltar looked at Sarah with awe. 6 of his eyes. Commander Chun, I must ask you something very important. Will humanity help us liberate the galaxy? Sarah thought about the question carefully. This was much bigger than just first contact. They were talking about freeing billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. It would be the largest humanitarian mission in history. I cannot make that decision alone, Sarah said. I need to contact Earth and speak with our leaders. Of course, Veltar said. But while you are deciding, we will begin liberating our own people. Every free Catherian can help spread the treatment to others. Over the next several days, Sarah watched an amazing transformation take place. As more Catherians received the treatment, their entire fleet changed from a military force into something resembling a rescue mission. The liberated Catherians shared their true culture with the humans. They were indeed scientists, artists, and philosophers, just as Veltar had said. They showed Sarah beautiful crystal sculptures, complex medical theories, and music that sounded like nothing humans had ever heard. This is who we really are, Siltara explained as she showed Sarah a holographic art display. For 300 years, the parasites suppressed our creativity and curiosity. They only allowed us to focus on conquest and expansion. Sarah received a response from Earth's government. The message was clear. Humanity would help liberate the galaxy. Ships carrying medical supplies and additional doctors were already on their way. Earth has agreed to help, Sarah told Veltar. We are forming the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Every freed species will be invited to join as equal partners. Veltar's crystal skin flashed with patterns that Sarah now recognized as extreme happiness. This is more than we ever dared to hope for. The first liberation mission began 3 weeks later. A combined human Catherian fleet traveled to a nearby star system where the parasites had taken control of a species called the Mordani. The Mordani were plant-like beings who had been forced to strip their own worlds, bare to feed the hegemony's expansion. The liberation was successful. When the Mordani were freed from parasitic control, they wept tears of joy. Their natural instinct was to nurture and grow things, not to destroy them. Within days, they were already planning to restore their damaged worlds. As more species were liberated, the alliance grew stronger. Each freed civilization brought new knowledge, new perspectives, and new capabilities to the group. The Zephyrians contributed advanced energy technologies. The Aquatics shared methods for healing damaged ecosystems. The Crystine race offered mathematical insights that revolutionized space travel. Sarah found herself at the center of this growing alliance, no longer just a space station commander, but a leader in the greatest liberation effort the galaxy had ever seen. Commander, Veltar said to her one day as they planned another rescue mission, do you realize what humanity has accomplished? We helped some people who were in trouble, Sarah replied modestly. No, Veltar said firmly. You looked at a parasite and saw a patient instead of an enemy. You chose healing over destruction. In all our travels across the galaxy, only humanity had the wisdom to choose cooperation over domination. Sarah looked out at the fleet of ships from dozens of different species, all working together toward a common goal. Maybe that is what makes us human, she said. We believe that everyone deserves to be free. And that, Veltar replied, is why the galaxy needed you.